What I'm going to talk about today is what we're doing in Pakistan. So when we did leave Baltimore, we thought we were leaving one of the most dangerous cities in America for a safer place. Uh, it didn't really pan out that way. Um, what I'm going to talk about is start with this picture here. So when I left and I went to Pakistan, I came across many low-income housing segments, and I came to realize that not just in Pakistan, but in all over the world, many people live in conditions that are like this or a little bit better than this. So they don't have proper access to water, they don't have proper access to sewage, they don't have proper access to social infrastructure like education and health clinics and the like. And when we started studying the problem, it happened to be that Acumen Fund was investing in Saiban, one of the low-income housing leaders in Pakistan. And we had identified that one of the main problems that people generally tend to ignore is the socioeconomic center of the problem. So when we talk about low-income housing, we talk about affordability, we talk about sustainability, but we always forget to talk about the people. And how can we make sure that these developments that we make do not turn into slums, do not turn into ghettos, and end up being healthy, vibrant communities. So our focus was really essentially on the community. So what we did was take basically an understanding of what's happening in the low-income housing sector in Pakistan and see how those developments look and how we can improve. So this is, I don't know if anybody can see this, but this is basically one of the developments that we came across on the left side here. So you have open sewage, you have incomplete walls and the likes. On the right side is what we were able to build in one of our Acumen Fund investments, which is called Khuda Ki Basti, Settlement of God, where you have organized open, an open road, you have organized electricity, you have underground sewage, and so on and so forth. In a typical development, it doesn't matter if it's high-end or low-end in Pakistan, if there is an empty plot next door, it can be literally $1 million value plot, but you will find it looking like this. And so what we did was we focused on getting the community to really manage themselves and take on responsibility, and we were able to achieve this for people who are earning between $80 and $150 a month. So our focus was where most developers are really talking about building houses and bricks and mortar, our focus was on building communities. We started off in 2007 after a long fight with the government and trying to get the permitting cleared on a 20-acre plot that started like this. 1 year later, when we actually were able to get the proper regulatory approvals and so on and so forth, we were able to get to this level here where we were able to actually start getting the community to start moving in. And then our next challenge came up. The first challenge was getting to really overcome the barriers that the government wants to create for us. So something that takes 2 months ends up taking 2 years. And that was our first challenge, to really overcome that without going down the road of paying speed money. So when we got to this stage, then we had another challenge, which was trying to get the lower income segments to really trust us that we're actually going to build out the development. A year later, the same place, we're able to get parks and get a community that's starting to develop around here. And finally, 2 years into the project, in around June 2009, we're able to have 1,000 people living in the community. We have income generation programs. We have a mosque, we have commercial centers, and we have a really vibrant, healthy community going there. At the same time, on June 9th, 2009, my wife was working with UNICEF, and she had gone on a tour of duty or whatever to the IDPs in Peshawar. And she was staying at the PC because that was the Pearl Continental, that was the only hotel that was available that night. At 10 p.m., I received a phone call from my wife, and in a really calm voice, she said to me, the hotel was attacked by suicide bombers, and there was an explosion. And I'm fine, but I cannot find my friend or my colleague, Percy. Now, this was what that was. And about 4 hours later, around 2 a.m., I got a phone call. I had fallen asleep going back and forth in communication, and I received a text message from my wife, and it had 2 words on it: Percy died. And it took me about 5 minutes to really pull myself together to have the courage to call my wife up and confront her or console her. And when we finally got on the phone, I started talking to her, and she said they found Percy in bed. She had instantly died in the explosion. And at that point, in a really soft voice, my wife said to me, "Pray for me, I'm having complications." I had completely forgotten that after 13 years of marriage and one miscarriage, my wife was 6 weeks pregnant. And we had no idea what was going to happen for the next 2 days. The real challenge was really trying to contemplate what we're going to do. At that point, there was some serious questions that I had in my mind, my wife had in her mind. Is this something that we can handle? You know, what if my wife didn't make it? What if the baby doesn't make it? And so it was a real wake-up call for me to really figure out, is this something that I can do, or am I just not really cut out for this? God has been very generous, and we've had a daughter, and everything was fine. But around the same time, we started developing the community around June 2009. And the answers to these questions about, is it worth it, or should I be here, or can I be here, really started coming through. So people like Akram, who basically was the first resident that came onto our site, and he earns $80 per month, and he pops out children every 9 months. And he is basically sustaining his family on site. He has said that I had never dreamed of owning my own home. And now, for 2 years, he's a homeowner. He's employed on the site as a security guard, and we've been able to provide him a home. Here's another one of our residents who's a driver who earns $125 a month. And one of his daughters is mentally challenged, and he had a fear his entire life that where will my daughters go when I die? And being able to hand the ownership over to his daughters, or having that assurance, was something that really caused some peace of mind to him and to his wife. And they had been paying rent for 20 years and had nothing to show for it. And now their monthly installments are allowing them to own a home, essentially. So what we actually started doing, and this is that's the final part of the talk that I really want to share with you guys, what we started doing was developing the community. And one small case I want to share with you all is about sectarian strife and sectarian violence that we had in the community. When we first started the community, and as everybody knows in the Muslim world, Shia, Sunni, sectarian violence ends up being brutally bloody. And so what we had was a night vigil in the month of fasting last year. And they came to my house and woke me up at 2 o'clock and said, "There's a fight going on in the mosque, you need to come fast." So just as a precursor, I decided to move on to the site midway in that summer to really help the community formulate. So now, I walk up to 50 people yelling at the top of their lungs saying, "He started it." And they were cursing at each other, and I was half awake until somebody pulled out a bat. And they swung the bat and connected with someone, and I woke up. And I realized this is really serious. These guys are ready to kill each other. And so we cooled everybody down. We were able to put a meeting together within 48 hours, and we got a committee put together for the mosque, because this was a religious issue, and it was representative of all the sects. For 8 months, we had meetings every week to try to figure out how we can overcome the differences and live together. The first meeting, we spent 2 hours just trying to figure out who will lead the prayer. Now, 8 months later, somebody came up with an issue, and they were accused of some blasphemous talk against the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Again, everybody went crazy, and it went all the way to the end where people started giving death threats to the person who did that. We were able to control them, and within 48 hours, again, we held another meeting. Now you have 60 people sitting in the mosque, and after 8 months of some facilitation, some coaching, they sat in the mosque for 90 minutes. They did not use any sort of violence. They did not curse. They did not yell. And they came together and figured out, this is our solution. We want to live together. We have to figure out how we're going to really move forward. And they were so happy at the end that they wanted to distribute sweets because of the way they were able to handle the problems. So the real thing that came to me was to try to figure out what I want to do next. And the easy solution was to say, let's pack up our bags and go back to America and live an easy life. The difficult thing was really to ignore the fact that 90 million people in Pakistan generally fit the profile of these people, these 1,000 residents living on site. And the potential of these people being able to come together and solve their problems is just fabulous. And so I leave you with a final thought that has kept me going in Pakistan. And that is that as in investment banking and in business, where there is generally high risk, there's potential for high return. And I've found that, at least in this simple case in Pakistan, where there is a prevalence of high social crisis, there is tremendous potential for social return. Thank you.